Okay, it is 6 o'clock and we are going to open the Hood River City Council meeting for February 28th. Anyone in the audience, just remember to silence or turn off your cell phone. And we're going to do the land acknowledgement and then the pledge. As we meet tonight, let us all remember that today we are stewards of land that has been home to indigenous peoples for thousands of years before the recent arrival of the European heritage dominant culture. We honor this land's ancestors as we go about our business today. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business is business from the audience. And the first person that signed up is Tracy Thomasball. And I believe she's on Zoom this evening.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay, Mayor McBride?
We can.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tracy Thomasball, and I'm speaking tonight about concerns with the way in which DKS evaluated the existing traffic volumes at intersections along Cascade Avenue. The DKS report contains flaws that fail to provide clear data about current and projected roads and their likely failure to meet mobility targets. The city needs a new traffic analysis to provide a clearer picture of traffic volumes with
Tracy, can you wait just a moment?
Yeah, should I do that at the public hearing?
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. This is Abigail Elder, City Manager, and I believe what you're testifying about today is relevant to the public hearing. So I think that's the appropriate.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, but yep.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, just go ahead and mute me and I'll be ready whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah, you want to just wait till the public hearing then? Okay.
Okay.
All right, great. All right. So the next person, business from the audience, is Brittany Mills. Can you touch that little thing? It should turn green. There you go.
Thank you. First, I would like to start by thanking you all for giving me an opportunity to speak here today. My name is Brittany, and I spend most of my time away from work recreating up in Mount Hood National Forest. I like to backpack and snowshoe and ski and do all the fun things that we love to do. So I'd like to talk to you today about the proposed legislation for up in Mount Hood. So wild space is shrinking, and we are lucky that we have hundreds of thousands of acres to play and view wildlife. And one of the best things about living in Upper Hood River Valley are the large mammals that we have. We have bears, we have cougars, elk, and they're right in our backyard. And they are literally in my backyard, which is pretty cool. So learning about this proposed legislation, I was excited to see that there's that recreational piece to be able to go out and do the fun things that we love, but there's also the protection of the wildlife piece. So currently, Mount Hood National Forest is running under a management plan that was made in the 1980s. I was born in the 1980s, so I'm looking forward to an opportunity to have a new vision and prioritize and balance conservation and recreation of Mount Hood and the Columbia Gorge. I was happy to learn that this proposal also paves way for new forest practices regarding climate change and water protections. Protecting the fast-growing, long-lived forest around Mount Hood and the Gorge will result in long-term storage of carbon to help offset that climate change. It also includes a transportation plan that will help reduce carbon emissions, ease traffic, and improve safety. Mount Hood is so special, and this proposal is an incredible opportunity to proactively address local and global challenges. Please support this new vision for protecting and enhancing the place we love and the place that we call home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see we have one more person that walked in. We're doing business from the audience. Would you like to speak?
I came because of the affordable housing proposal for rezoning, so, I'd like to say a few words about that. I don't know if this is the appropriate time. We'll wait for the public hearing.
We're going to have a public hearing on that. So if you want to be on the record for that, I would just wait till that time.
Is that today or? is
Yes,
it-
today.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you, Brittany, for speaking. All right. So now we're going to open a public hearing. And this is a request to continue a hearing on an appeal of the Planning Commission decision to approve a minor adjustment to the Adams Creek co-housing site. So I have an official script to read on that. This is for file 2021-42. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call to order the February 28th, 2022 public hearing of the Hood River City Council. It is the time scheduled for a public hearing on an appeal of a Planning Commission decision to approve a minor adjustment to a site plan review to construct a multi-family co-housing development called Adams Creek Co-housing, City File 2021-42, amending file number 2020-03. Opponents to the development raised 7 issues in their appeal of the Planning Commission decision. This is an, quote, on the record appeal from the Planning Commission, which means that we do not allow any new evidence beyond what was heard and available to the Planning Commission. Participation in the hearing is limited to parties of record. First, we will consider a request from the applicant to set the hearing on this matter over until March 14th. Staff has recommended that council accept this request. So I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing on the minor adjustment to the site plan review application in file number 2021-42 for the Adams Creek Co-housing development to March 14th, 2022, beginning no earlier than 6 p.m. And prior to that, we should probably do conflicts of interest so that people that might have a conflict can abstain from.
I don't think that's necessary at this time, but if anyone needs to abstain for the vote because they anticipate a disclosure or a conflict later, I think they could simply abstain. And if you want to explain your abstention, that's fine. But we'll do disclosures next week.
Okay,
I think that was the advice of the city attorney.
okay, since this is just a continuance to a different date,
Right.
there's no decision being made
Correct.
on the actual appeal. All right. I entertain a motion.
I move to continue the hearing on the minor adjustment to site plan review application for the Adams Creek co-housing development in file number 2021-42 to March 14th, 2022, beginning no earlier than 6 p.m.
Megan has made a motion and Jessica has seconded the motion to continue the hearing on the minor adjustment to the site plan review application file 2021-42 for the Adams Creek co-housing development to March 14th, 2022, no earlier than 6 p.m. All those in favor? Aye. Abstentions?
I'll stay here. Yep, me too.
Okay, so Mark and Eric are abstaining. Any nays? And the chair votes aye. So we have 4 votes affirmative to move to March 14th. Right. All right, next public hearing. So this is the one that you wanted to speak on, and then Tracy Thomas Ball also is on Zoom, and she also wanted to speak on this one. So I'll go ahead and read the script here. This is the time schedule for the public hearing on the zone change by City of Hood River file 2021-54. The subject property is known as 780 Rand Road and is located west of the intersection of Rand Road and Sierra Lane. The affected parcels currently are zoned urban, low density, residential or R1 and urban high-density residential R3 and are proposed to be designated entirely urban high-density residential R3 following the zone change. For interested parties who have not already contacted the city recorder for instructions to provide oral testimony by phone or video conference, testimony will be accepted from those who are in attendance at City Hall tonight. A quorum of the council is present. I will now ask all councilors to disclose any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, or bias in this matter. Do I have any conflicts or bias?
I assume we don't have to disclose the stuff we've all learned together as we've gone through this process. So,
No,
I know.
nothing. Anything outside of that?
None, Mayor.
And also none for me. All right. Would anyone in the audience like to question any counselors on any disclosure, ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, or otherwise challenge the participation of any member of council? Okay. Would any counselor like to make a motion to disqualify any other counselor from hearing this application? No. Okay. In tonight's hearing, we'll use the following order of presentation. First, we will begin with the staff report, where the staff will describe the application before us. Second, anyone in favor of the proposal may testify. Then third, neutral parties may testify. And fourth, opponents to the proposal may testify. If there is opponent testimony, the applicant then has an opportunity to present final rebuttal. The applicant has the last word because an applicant has the burden of providing compliance with the mandatory approval criteria. After that, we will check to see if staff has any parting comments following the conclusion of all public testimony. And finally, after everyone interested in these matters have had a chance to testify, we will close the record, deliberate, and render a decision this evening. I'll read the rules of testimony when we get to the testimony, but I would go ahead and give your staff report. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor McBride and councilors. You'll find a cover sheet on page 26 of your packet, followed by supporting materials, including the Planning Commission's findings and decision, draft meeting minutes from the Planning Commission's hearing on February 7th, and ordinance number 2066. This zone change application, file number 2021-54, is being processed in accordance with the procedures for quasi-judicial action for 17.09.040 of the zoning ordinance. For zone change applications, the Planning Commission forwards a recommendation for a decision to the City Council, and the Council makes the final decision. Chapter 17.08 of the zoning ordinance addresses zone change and plan amendments. For quasi-judicial zone changes, which affect a limited number of properties such as this, Section 17.08.030 addresses information that should be submitted with an application and also outlines procedural requirements. Section 17.08.040 details applicable criteria, and Section 17.08.050 addresses the transportation planning rule, which comes from Oregon administrative rules enacted to support Goal 12 of the statewide land use system. That's with respect to transportation. The City of Hood River is the applicant for the zone change affecting property that it owns west of the intersection of Rand Road and Sierra Lane, as noted by the mayor. The property is vacant and is being referred to as 780 Rand Road. Legal description 3 North, 10 East, 26 CC, tax lots 500, 600, 700, and 901. As noted by the mayor, the city proposes to rezone approximately 6.3 acres of the subject property from urban low density R1 to urban high density residential R3. A small portion of the site, about 89/100ths of an acre, currently is zoned R3. So if approved, the entire 7.19 acre site will be zoned R3. Maps of the property are referenced in the Planning Commission's findings as attachments A1, A2, and A3. Those are on pages 45 through 47 of your packet. And a map of the proposed zoning is Exhibit A to Ordinance 2066. That's on page 132 of your packet. Although development is not proposed at this time, the purpose of the zone change is to facilitate development of affordable housing, which is likely to be in the form of apartments and townhouses. These housing types are not permissible in the R1 zone but they are permissible in the R3 zone. The Planning Commission's decision presents findings addressing applicable criteria, including public need. The proposed zone change addresses the 2015 housing needs analysis and the city's housing strategy. Housing Strategy 1 calls for using the city's existing supply of land more efficiently. The strategy recognizes the limited supply of residential land, including an inadequate supply of land zoned R3 to accommodate multifamily development. More specifically, Strategy 1, Action 1.1 calls for identifying land to upzone from R1 to allow additional moderate and high-density residential development. Also, Housing Strategy 3 calls for developing affordable housing, including through public-private partnerships. And Strategy 3, Action 3.1 calls for using surplus publicly owned properties to develop affordable housing in partnership with the Mid-Columbia Housing Authorities. The city expects to work with the Columbia Cascade Housing Corporation, that's the development arm of the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority, to develop affordable housing on the site if the zone change is approved. Written testimony from 2 parties is attached to the Planning Commission's decision. This includes a letter of support from Thrive Hood River, as well as comments from a neighboring property owner, Christine, who expressed a variety of concerns related to site development, including traffic, noise from construction, trash, loss of vegetation and trees, and who I believe will provide additional testimony tonight. Today, we received written comments from Tracy Thomas-Paul expressing concerns about traffic forecasting and the traffic study that was prepared for this zone change application. And I believe Tracy will provide additional testimony to us tonight. Will Norris did speak with the city's traffic consultant, DKS and Associates, this afternoon, and can provide more information if you've got questions on that or if you'd like to jump in.
Yeah, I'll just make one quick note and appreciate receiving written testimony ahead of the meeting so we could follow up with the traffic engineer to clarify his report. Looking into the data, the seasonal factor that one of the issues Tracy speaks to in her testimony had to do with the data being collected in mid-September of 2017, which was during the Eagle Creek fire. That was a typo. The data, it was from a 2017 report, but actually mid-September 2016. So a year before the Eagle Creek fire. And so I think that's why you do see that it has a seasonal factor of 1.27. Probably if it was taken during the Eagle Creek fire, it'd be almost probably negative traffic, from that time because not much was going on in the city with all the smoke. So that was a typo that we regret. But the issue of a data point being from the Eagle Creek fire is not the case in this analysis.
Okay, thank you, Will. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on February 7th and recommends approval of the zone change based on findings of fact and their decision signed February 18th. Draft minutes from the Commission's hearing are attached for reference on pages 126 to 129 of your packet. Tonight, staff recommends the council opens the public hearing and takes testimony. Based on the testimony provided up to this point, at the conclusion of the public hearing, staff recommends approval of the zone change and reading ordinance 2066 for the first time by title only. With that, are there any questions before we get into testimony? Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll read the rest of the script here. I think we just have a couple people that want to testify, but these are the rules of presenting testimony this evening. Only present testimony in the order I just recited and do so only at the podium in front of the table or on Zoom if you're on Zoom. Begin with your name and mailing address. Please limit your testimony to substantive issues and the criteria in Hood River Municipal Code, Chapter 17.08. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to allow us or the parties to respond to the issue will preclude an appeal to LUBA based on that issue. LUBA is the Land Use Board of Appeals. Failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow us to respond to the issue will preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Finally, we may set time limits on the presentation of testimony tonight. although there is no limitation on written testimony, written argument that may be submitted. Right, and I believe we have, you would like to speak, correct? And Tracy's the only other one on, Jen? Okay. I mean, I don't think we have a whole, too many people to testify, so I'm just going to say that each person can get 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and, we tried to get Tracy before when we were doing business from the audience, so let's let her go first.
Okay, take two. Can you hear me?
We can, Tracy.
Okay, well, now I have to adjust to Will's info, which is nice to have. But I'm going to go ahead and because I've got some other information. So my name is Tracy Thomas Paul, and I live in Hood River, 3816 Rocky Ridge. I'm speaking tonight about concerns with the way in which DKS evaluated the existing traffic volumes at intersections along Cascade Avenue. I would say that I'm neither for nor against the Rand Road project. I would say this is a neutral comment, but it is specifically about the problems with the DKS traffic report. It contains flaws that fail to produce clear data about current and projected roads and their likely failure to meet mobility targets. The city needs a new traffic analysis to provide a clearer picture of traffic volumes with and without the 780 Rand Road project. This matters to the safety of residents and to the estimated costs to address those traffic inadequacies. It was good to know that the report that seemed to indicate that traffic was analyses were taken from data recorded in mid-2017 in September were incorrect, and that it was actually taken from mid-September 2016. However, a traffic analysis using post-Labor Day volumes to represent peak summer traffic is still problematic. By that time, most schools are open again and tourist traffic has subsided. Using the time when traffic into Hood River is slowing down instead of taking it at a peak traffic time doesn't present a clear picture of summer traffic. Additionally, ODOT has reported significant gorge traffic increases since 2019. An ODOT traffic analysis from June 2021 for I-84 showed that weekend volumes on I-84 outside the Portland area were 11 to 15% greater than 2019 levels over the month of May. Furthermore, the recent DKS traffic count was done on December 14th between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. So it's even more likely that a summer estimate of pedestrian and bike traffic is going to be underrepresented. Sunset on December 14th was at 4:24 p.m. It's no surprise there were no bikes or pedestrians at most Cascade Avenue intersections during the 1 hour period they studied. We shouldn't believe that those figures represent summer bike and pedestrian traffic. And once the connection to the historic Columbia Highway is completed, bike traffic on Cascade will grow further. Even using 5-year-old 2016 data, the DKS analysis states, side street demand during the peak summer conditions exceeds capacity on Cascade Avenue at the I-84 westbound ramp, Mount Adams Avenue, and Rand Road, with significant delays experienced. I respectfully suggest that the city require DKS to present a new analysis of the existing shortcomings using traffic data counts from mid-July or mid-August 2019, also incorporating ODOT reports of gorge traffic increases. New figures showing the estimate flows for peak traffic volume should be submitted. We need to consider pedestrian and bike traffic safety, and those numbers should then be used to calculate Horizon 2040 volumes and shared with city residents. That's the only way in which we'll have a clear picture of what our current shortcomings are and what the costs to keep the city safe for vehicles, pedestrians, and bike travelers is going to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy. Abigail or Kevin, could you have her go ahead and sign up on that so we have a record? Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Pike, and I live in Rand Village, which is on Rand Road, directly across from the proposed development. And I did submit written comments, but I want to also emphasize the concerns I have, and that's why I'm here as well. So I also don't oppose or necessarily, support the project or the affordable housing development at this time. I'm in a neutral space, but I have concerns about the consequences of the increased density that the rezoning would allow. And those concerns land on a number of factors right now. One of them was what has been discussed just now about the increased traffic. I don't have supporting data, but I have lived experience. Rand Road is a busy road even now, as is Cascade. It's also dangerous at times, especially in the main tourist seasons, when people are just coming and going. They're going to Safeway, they're going to Dairy Queen, they're going to Taco Bell. They're coming in and out of sort of bottlenecks onto Cascade and onto Rand Road. So my concern is traffic and safety, and I think the situation currently is dangerous. And I suspect with greater density, more people with cars driving to and from their houses and to Safeway and elsewhere, it's going to increase. So I would like to see that addressed, and I haven't really seen that. I'm concerned about noise. Rand Road is a noisy street, so is Cascade. It's currently noisy. The noise will simply increase with greater usage. And I'm not sure that, I haven't seen anything myself in terms of how that is being addressed. I think there's a concern of mine that has to do with trash. And trash has become an ubiquitous thing in most cities, even small ones like Hood River. And it's really a problem that nobody seems to be addressing at the municipal level. And there's trash on Cascade, and it just sits there in the gutter, on the sidewalk, along the buffers of private property. Safeway does nothing to clean up their parking lot and their strips. And it doesn't appear to me that the city is requiring businesses to do that. Some businesses do a better job than others. I think McDonald's does a pretty good job, but many of them just don't care. And there's garbage everywhere. It's unseemly. And I think the garbage will simply increase with greater use. So I would like to see some sort of approach or plan for dealing with garbage, incentivizing people to not throw it, incentivizing people to put it in garbage receptacles. But first you have to put garbage receptacles so that people can use them, and there aren't any in that area. And then finally, at least for now, the decrease in vegetative cover and loss of trees, both as a visual buffer and an environmental one. Since I live in the neighborhood, it has certain features that I personally would like to see continued, and good trees, mature trees, and vegetative cover is one of them. So those are my concerns for now, and I appreciate your listening to them.
Thank you for taking the time to write us and to come and testify. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to double check and make sure there isn't anyone else that wants to testify either for, against, or neutrally during this public hearing. Okay. Do you have any parting comments, Kevin?
I can touch on a couple of things.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Just to touch on a couple of the comments that we heard, including from Tracy Thomas Paul, with respect to concerns about using traffic data collected in September. That was the reason for applying a seasonal adjustment factor to recognize that traffic might be busier during the peak summer months. And so that factor was intended to bump things up to look at impacts during those potential high months. I'll point out, although I respect concerns about trips by pedestrian and cyclists, the way that our current zoning ordinance works and the requirements for traffic studies, what is analyzed is vehicle trip counts, not necessarily trip counts by peds and cyclists. But this is an issue that's come up recently in front of the Planning Commission, and something we've discussed as staff. And I think in association with development proposals, we can look at the land use application and look at the pedestrian and bike facilities and try to identify potential conflicts between automobile trips, peds and bikes before development is approved. Tracy asked for a new traffic study to be prepared, and that is expected. In association with a development application for the site, we expect the developer will need to prepare a traffic study. It's based on a specific development proposal. The traffic study prepared for the zone change anticipated what could happen under the new zoning. When the developer submits their development application with a specific number of units and a specific housing type, their traffic analysis will look specifically at those impacts. And it may include recommendations for mitigation. One of the things I would keep in mind specifically is for the intersection of Cascade and Rand. We do have a project that is scheduled to be constructed there, a new signalization project that's been delayed. Do expect that to be constructed. City engineer is with us here tonight, I believe in 2023 or 2024. And we don't expect development on this site to occur and be ready for occupancy before 2025 at the earliest. So hope that the signalization of the intersection of Cascade and Rand will help to address some of the concerns we've heard. With respect to Christine's concerns for noise, chapter 8.09 of the municipal code addresses noise, including hours during which construction can occur. With respect to trash, chapter 8.08 of the municipal code addresses nuisances. And if there are problems with specific properties, the code enforcement officer can work with property owners to address those. With respect to decreasing vegetation on the site and loss of trees, that is something that we will need to address in association with the development application. We do have some standards in the development code, I believe in chapter 16.12.040 about retention of significant trees. And that comes up in the context of land divisions. We've also tried to address this in the purchase option agreement with community development partners to ensure they take a close look at retention of especially the older trees on the site, recognizing there's some balance between achieving the affordable housing development objectives and retention of those natural features. So I'll leave it at that unless there are any other questions.
Megan?
Thanks, Kevin. I think I have two questions that I think are just clarifying what you were saying, but the noise and trash regulations are city ordinances that are outside of the zone change request. Is that what you were saying?
That's correct. Yeah. If folks in the community have concerns about issues like noise, we look to chapter 8.09 of the municipal code, and they can work again with the code enforcement officer to make sure that the code is being followed. And similarly, with respect to trash, that really is going to fall under nuisance provisions in the code. And that's chapter 8.08.
Awesome, thank you. And then with the traffic study and intersections on Cascade besides Cascade and Rand, and I might butcher how I'm saying this, but they're in the TSP as projects that will be completed in the next 20-ish years. And is that why there isn't a required mitigation specific to those?
I'm sorry, that's why there isn't a what?
I'm gonna butcher this, but is that why they're not considered failures under this study?
Sure. Thank you.
Or please phrase that better.
No. That makes complete sense. The transportation system plan was amended in the spring of 2021. And we added a number of projects to our preferred list, and we added a number of projects to our financially constrained list. The projects along Cascade, including at Rand Road, Mount Adams, Exit 62 were added to the financially constrained list. And so there is a plan in place to address them, and we're still working on the funding aspect of things for those projects. But yeah, because the projects are listed in the TSP and in the financially constrained list, they weren't identified as problems for the zone change.
Thank you.
Any questions, Jim, from Kevin?
So Kevin, in your professional opinion, do you have concerns with the traffic study?
I do not have concerns with the traffic study because once again, we'll see another traffic study in association with development of a specific proposal. And I expect at that time, just as comes up with any other development application, if mitigation needs to be required, it'll be addressed at that time.
So do you see any opportunity there to potentially incorporate multimodal transportation issues?
Certainly, in association with a development application, we'll be looking for consistency with the TSP's requirements for not only automobile facilities, signalization projects, roads in certain locations, standards such as lane width and whatnot, but also pedestrian facilities, West Side Trail, Ridgeline Trail through this site, bicycle facilities, which could include bike lanes along Rand Road based on the TSP. So yeah, I think we will be addressing all modes and have an opportunity to coordinate with Columbia Area Transit to, we hope, make sure there are transit facilities available for residents of the site as well.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions done here for? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. So everyone's testified and Kevin has given his final word. So we will go ahead and close the public testimony portion of the hearing now and go ahead and deliberate. Did you guys have anything else on this or no? Okay, all right, great. I just want to make sure. Does anyone want to start?
Mine is super simple.
Well, go ahead, go ahead.
So I just want everyone that's listening to know that this is just, the first step of this project. And as Kevin very clearly detailed, that's the development application that's going to answer most of these questions. And, council has been, focused on these exact same things, the increase of pedestrian stuff, the getting that darn intersection light put in, and, bike ped stuff. So I think that for both commenters, our goals are the same as your goals. It's really the proof of the pudding is in the development application. So I'm perfectly happy with this zone change to keep the thing moving.
Okay.
I'll just jump in. I live a block off Rand, and so I'm very familiar with the traffic issues. And one of the questions that had been in my mind, and I know, again, this is the zone change, it's not the development that we'll be looking at, but I had been wondering about the timing of the intersection, the signalization, and when the housing was going to open. And I would not support the housing opening before the signalization is done, which I don't even think is possible because it probably would be a condition. But anyway, that's besides the point. So the zone change, I don't have any issues with it. I appreciated the extra information that Kevin added today in response to the comments we've heard.
Eric?
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess, first of all, I appreciate the two people who spoke. It takes time and effort to come and participate and listen carefully to everything that was said and appreciated the input. Like Jessica, I also live right near this area. I've been familiar with this Rand Road for much of my life. And I would say, just to kind of reflect also what Mark was saying, for me, traffic is one of the key important things for us to get right. And it has been probably one of my biggest concerns about this project, not because I was concerned we shouldn't do it, we should, but because I want to make sure that this is successful so the project can be successful. And just to kind of emphasize some of the things I'm personally aware of and will kind of be a filter through my mind as we consider the development specifics going forward. You know, Rand is such a steep slope. We'll have obviously the, left, right, in and out. We've got to get that right. We're looking for robust sidewalks if we can on both sides, because it's a very dark area. And my family actually has a rule. We're not allowed on that road walking at night because there's like this little no man's land as you get up to Sherman, and it's very dangerous. I've been hit almost a few times as a runner. I don't run there much anymore. Also, it's shaded and dark. And in the wintertime, if you just go a little bit up to Sherman, it's sort of the first to freeze and the last to thaw. And so it can be dangerous there. Anyway, the point is just simply, I think we're all committed to, at least speaking for myself, committed to getting the traffic right. And with respect to enforcement, a different topic, I appreciated those comments as well. I think in our recent goal setting discussion, we talked about some enforcement issues related to snow and potentially taking a fresh look at enforcement generally. So, the city should be enforcing its ordinances in those, and it is, and we need to continue to do that. And so we have rules for those sound, et cetera. So we should be making sure those are enforced. But I guess my hope and my plan and my thought as a counselor here for the city is to make sure we get the traffic right so that this project can be a success for everyone.
Thanks, Eric. Tim?
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with everything that's been said. In addition to that, obviously we're very interested in promoting walkable and bikeable transportation, especially, since that area is so close to areas, places where people would want to go and need to go. So, having that, easing that would be great, and definitely a good goal. I do want to acknowledge that, these development projects are going to be difficult if you're living next to them sometimes, because things change. And sometimes we want to have things stay the same, and sometimes they just don't. I want to acknowledge that that's a difficult thing to cope with. The trash, I think, I'm not exactly sure how to deal with that, but I personally wish that people wouldn't throw stuff on the ground as well. So maybe that's a combination of an enforcement and maybe some type of outreach campaign to try to encourage people not to do that anymore. So, because it is unseemly. I agree. So other than that, given the issues that are in front of us today, I definitely support the zone change.
Thanks, Tim. Megan?
Yeah, I wanted to, I guess really, you guys covered plenty. It seems like we've covered the approval criteria required, and I'm supportive of this zone change.
Okay. I think everyone kind of took all the words away. Thank you for the public testimony on this. Traffic is important. Rand Road and Cascade has been on our list for, I don't know how many years to try and get that coordinated with ODOT to get that done. And, we would have them start digging ASAP if it was possible to get that intersection done as quick as we could. But I'm in favor of the zone change. This is just one of the first steps to getting some affordable housing that we need. And, the other code issues that have been brought up, I think those are, they're outside of this, they're issues, but they're in other codes that we have that there would be enforcement for those kind of things. And some impetus to do some things like, I know years ago, it was always in the spring and it always coincided with usually 1 week before Blossom Festival and Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism, if people remember that, solved, that the whole community would come out and clean up their town and county. And then the next weekend was Blossom Weekend, and there would be all the people coming to drive through the valley to look at the blossom. So, maybe we need to reinvigorate something like that, just community pride type thing. Take care of it. Well, it looks like all the comments I've heard have been positive. Does someone want to make a motion? We have a motion on page 26.
A quick clarification, do these need to be two separate motions or? Oh, thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Councilor Saunders. I think you can read them together. I think that's accepted. Thank you.
Great. Then I move to approve the zone change consistent with the Planning Commission's findings of fact signed February 18th, 2022. And I move to read ordinance number 2066 for the first time by title only.
Okay, I have a motion by Megan and a second by Tim to approve the zone change consistent with the Planning Commission's findings of fact signed February 18th, 2022. And it has been moved to read ordinance 2066 for the first time by title only. Additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Nays? Chair votes aye. All right, so that'll move on to city recorder towards the end of the meeting to read that by title only for the first time. All right, our public hearing is now closed. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and open the work session. Looks like we don't have anything. Is that correct? Nothing's added. Okay. So we will adjourn the work session. We'll go into a regular council meeting and open that. Any agenda additions or corrections on that?
Mayor, I'd like to give a short update after council call tonight. You call on me at that time.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. We have a consent agenda.
Mayor, I have one question about the consent agenda with respect to the Second Street light. And I don't know if, I'm not gonna, no problem with the agreement, but just to get a status update because it is sort of a thing. And my primary question is like, okay, with this done, when are we gonna dig holes? So.
Not in July.
I think this will be the last.
Kate and I both had black hair. I had hair.
When we started this.
When,
Yeah.
when we thought we were good.
Mine was brown, not purple.
So I think this will be the last summer without signal. I don't see any reason that not going to bid this year and fall and spring construction.
Fall into spring.
Yeah. I think, the bump outs and things can be done right after a contract's let. Other things like the signal poles are gonna have months of lead time for the materials to show up. So that's gonna probably stretch it out. Maybe not a 6 months continuous, maybe they'll work on, the pedestrian part and they'll come back and finish it up and do the final flat work. But yeah, it's, from what I hear, it's very close to approval.
Rand Road's much further down the road.
Rand Road, we should be opening bids for construction this fall.
Okay.
That's cool. I did have one other, the drawing of the Second Street interchange, the council talked at one point about the ability to do sort of a mass pedestrian crossing thing.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that that's going to be a possibility within the design, not that we're going to do it or not do it, but just, I'd like it to be a software problem, not a design problem.
So the study that was one of the options they looked at, and the traffic engineer did not recommend that as being the most efficient for that intersection.
Is it just a matter of paint if they change
I
their
think
mind?
it's just retiming of the signals. I mean, it's
Okay, so that
there's
sounds
no physical change that would be required to
Okay.
the
Right.
environment.
Because if everything stopped every direction and then the pedestrians could go, and then the pedestrians all stop and then traffic.
Yeah, I liked it, but that's not what they thought was the most.
I just want it to be a future council's option to do. And I think you've answered the question that there's nothing in the design that wouldn't let some future people do that.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the physical layout.
Okay. I think their biggest concern is making sure it doesn't back up on the interstate.
Pedestrians, they'll just go crazy.
No, no,
Always ODOT's concern.
yeah,
Um,
all right.
I'll continue my trend.
Any, you have questions about the consent
No.
agenda too?
I was just gonna make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, it's you. I'll second it since.
Okay, Megan's made a motion and Mark has seconded approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions, chair votes aye. All right, regular business items, award professional service contract for capital improvement program on-call engineering services. You gonna do this one, Wade? Okay,
Good evening again. As you know, the city has a long list of construction projects ahead of us over the next decade or so. The 2020 goal to reduce I&I with replacing all the, oh, I'm sorry. The 2020 goal of replacing so many lead pipes to reduce I&I and our water line pipes has added a great number of projects. This item tonight is trying to reduce some staff time and create an on-call list of qualified consultants that we can have contracts with ahead of time, and then we just negotiate the scope of the work each time we give somebody a project. And the city has done a very similar approach, but it's probably been 15 years since we've had an active list. So we reviewed 13 RFQs last fall and narrowed it down to 8. It's kind of hard to narrow it down because mostly they're qualified. Anyway, we're recommending entering into contracts with these 8 firms so that we can start passing out. Mainly it's the I&I and the joint work projects, but there could be other spillover that is appropriate, smaller projects. And we're ready to hand out the first 3 as soon as we say okay.
all right. Additional questions for Wade?
I'm just gonna comment, it seems more efficient, so thank you all.
It's a lot more.
Just a question, it might be for Will, or it might be for you, that I think this is great. It allows us with our current staffing to continue with these very important projects. My only question is the 3 years is if we 2 budget cycles from now say, there's a smarter way to do it, is this all at will kind of stuff? Can we just not use somebody?
Yeah, on call as needed.
Okay, so
They're not guaranteed anything. In other words.
gotcha. All right, so I think that's cool. All right.
Yeah, and I'll just add that we did this very same process for project managers about 1.5 years ago, if you might remember. It was very, very similar. And that's been working out great. It's so nice to have that help just right when you need it, when a project pops up. It's been instrumental to the hydroelectric project. John Grimm's been doing a great job for that. HBH has been helping. And that was one of the other firms that got on roster. They've been a huge help keeping project movement on in public works. So.
And we could amend if some magic new forms, we could add them to the queue. I assume.
Not for the on-call roster. So we didn't need to redo the RFQ to add another firm to the on-call roster. But we could, but this doesn't stop us from separately bidding out projects, just the way we always do.
Right. And I think potentially larger projects, most of them are, the majority of them are under design already. We would not probably pull from a list, but we would go through a larger RFQ process.
I'm all about efficiency. You guys make your name, so.
Someone have a motion?
I move that the city council authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign professional services contracts with the 8 listed consulting engineers for on-call engineering projects during 2021 to 2024 in an amount not to exceed $250,000 annually for each contract.
Second.
Megan's made a motion, Jessica's made a second, to authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign professional services contracts with 8 listed consulting engineers for on-call engineering projects during 2021-24 in an amount not to exceed $250,000 annually for each contract. Additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Chair votes aye. Thank you. Let's see here. Consolidated fee schedule. Norris.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is an annual action that we do every year, driven by our financial policies, which is to set our fees at cost recovery where possible, unless there is an overriding policy objective to subsidize or promote a different policy objective. But then also to once set, review and adjust annually by an appropriate inflation index. So the changes we have for fiscal year 22-23 is the annual inflation adjustment. We have pegged our general fees to West Coast cities CPI. And that's been since about 2016. Prior to that, there was a more specific index for the Portland metro area. That went away. And so we switched to West Coast cities for our general inflationary index. But anything that's tied to construction cost, we have a specific construction cost index from the engineering new record report. And that's mostly for system development charges. Both of them much higher. I don't than prior years. I don't think that's news to many folks around here that the United States and generally globally has just seen a big rise in inflation, due in large part to supply chain issues and resource constraints. So that's pegged there though through the normal indexes. Some of the more the one-off changes for this year is continuing to increase parking permit lot charges. This is the monthly charge to park in city lots. So you get the hanger. And we, from the 2019 parking study, started a practice where if the parking lot was sold out, we would increase the parking fee by $5 per year until the parking lot was no longer sold out. That practice went into place just before the pandemic and none of the lots sold out. But now we're back to the Cascade front and state lots being sold out with room in the Columbia lot. So the Columbia lot is unchanged at $25 per month, which is a fairly affordable option for people who need to drive to downtown. But the 3 lots that are sold out are increased by $5 to from $45 to $50 per month. And the on-street all season meter permit is increased to equal that amount. That's a meter type that's being phased out that basically allows you to park on street even in the middle of summer, which is not to meet our parking goals. So we no longer let people buy that new, but people who have it already are grandfathered in and are able to renew.
You know how many of those we have, Will? I mean, are they slowly like expiring occasionally 1 or 2 and then?
They're slowly peeling off. So we had a lot peel off during the pandemic. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's around less than 15
Oh, not very many at all. Okay.
Yeah. So that's parking permit increases. We roll in the maximum taxi rates into the consolidated fee schedule. This is really, I thought, it's kind of a never ending process. I thought we would get them all. We seem to always find, one or two things that haven't made it into the consolidated fee schedule to kind of get on this autopilot for inflationary adjustments. Every year, I think we got the last one, and then, one pops up we forgot about. So continuing to, as we set rates, find ones that aren't being adjusted annually, roll them into this process every year. And so we have the maximum taxi rates. The next fee is really an administrative burden reduction rather than any sort of really bottom line change to anyone fees. So we have always charged a $10 account setup and $10 account closeout fee for utilities. And that's just so that those staff costs aren't burdened on the overall rates, and they're targeted at the specific workload of setting up and shutting down an account. Putting $10 to start up to start up an account is very easy to collect because it just goes on the next month's bill. But $10 to close down an account when someone was a renter and they've left the state, really the juice isn't even worth the squeeze. That's how much effort it sometimes can take to get that $10, and sometimes not collected at all. So one of our front staff had, I thought, a really great idea of just charge $20 at account setup and nothing at account move out, and we'll get the same bottom line amount of revenue with a whole lot less time and effort. So I thought that was a good idea to bring forward to you. And then lastly, we have just the continuation of our 5-year utility rate study that was adopted. We're going into the second year of the 5-year, just as presented by FCS during that three meeting session that we had on utility rates. I know inflation is certainly running higher than assumptions. Right now, we think we are okay to just stick with the plan. There's so many different assumptions that go into those 5-year rate forecasts. Some will be higher, some will be lower. Our cash flow outlook for the utilities seems sustainable. And the way I phrase this is, once you set this plan, it's innocent until proven guilty. And I don't see enough evidence yet to really tell us we need to deviate in any specific way from the 5-year rate plan. So that's put in here just as presented by the rate consultants. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
the parking meter bag fee, is that the term used for the parking ticket?
For the bag, I think that's to shut down. Do you have a line number?
175. I think that's not a parking ticket. Is a parking ticket on this list at all?
Yes, they are. 175 lost your bag fee. I think this is where we shut down a street and we need to bag the meters to show that they're not being collected. And if we check those out to you and you don't bring them back. The fines are.
If someone else would be doing an event or something and you give them the bags to cover the meters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just checking in, Jen, to make sure that's current practice. And
Yeah, for like Ozfest, things like that.
and the fines are in here and they are adjusted for inflation. It would take me a second to find them.
144.
Thank you.
While we're in that section, if I can.
Did you have anything else?
Well, I might have comments. That's my question.
I was like, I'm in the lines, I had a question about. Lines 178, 179, hotel guest parking. The half day went up and the full day didn't, and I'm wondering if you could shed light on that.
Half day went up and full day didn't. Yeah, so that's those small dollar amounts. The way that the formula works is they're actually benchmarked to where they were in 2018 or whenever they started. And then they're adjusted inflation from West Coast CPI index from 2018 to today. So sometimes that creates a little odd patterns as to which of them made it far enough in, fractions of a dollar in order to be rounded up or rounded down. So I suspect if we were to go back a year, likely the full day probably went up last year and the half day didn't. Yeah. Mhm.
Other questions? Okay, go ahead, Mark.
On row 126 is the municipal court stuff. And I was just like flipping around and I didn't see the other reference section for that. Is that?
Public records request, let's see. It's definitely in there, but there are 700 lines. 410 is where we get into public records request charges.
Okay. And then maybe that's just something. And then Kate, I have a question just about the late, it's more of a discussion point than related.
Okay,
So.
let's try and go through the lines to see if people have comments specific to a fee or something we charge, or why something did something specific, anything down here? Jessica? Nothing more. Okay, I've got a couple. And then we'll do general comments. Let's see. I bet Will's ear for an hour to admit to you guys on this. I'm like, how do you do that? Why is it like this? Anyway, I tried to get on, most of my questions were answered. But there was just a couple that, the parking meter, individual parking, the fees for how much it costs, they aren't changing. Some of these don't change at all, but then really explain how that works. So that's fine. I just need to make sure that those do go up when they're supposed to go up, as our parking study says. A couple other things. Planning application fees, line 203. So that went up, inflation amount. But accessory dwelling units are one of our small housing units that's more affordable. So, just as a policy, and we don't need to do anything today. I'm not saying let's change this, but I'm just thinking maybe we should look at some of the things in here that help affordable housing, and maybe we don't want that to go up at all, or half the amount of everything else or something like that. Just and the other thing that was on here, which is line 207, which is annexation. We want people to annex, so we can do more housing. So, then they would be on the taxable, pay city tax. They need to if they're going to get sewer. I mean, they have to, but it would make an easier progression for planning if we had larger sections that would annex at once. And if we make the fee less or don't raise it, that would be more incentive for people to do it. So that was just a thought. Mobile home parks, we have 3, I guess, in town. And those fees are going up, and that's a pretty large fee. And so the increase is pretty large. It's another affordable housing thing. Let's see here.
That's to make a new one, right?
Yeah, to make a new one. Not that we're gonna have a lot of spaces to make new ones, but. And then I had one question, and this was, maybe Kevin can answer this one. I'm not sure. Zone change map and zone change text. Is that when you do one, you have to make a map and then you have to do text for what it is? There's separate fees for those. Is that what that is?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. There are 2 separate actions. One related to changing the zoning map like we did tonight on the Van Road property. from one zoning designation to another, or a text change going into the zoning ordinance and changing a code requirement, that maybe an applicant is interested in making an amendment to the code and they propose a change. So there's a fee
Oh,
associated
okay.
with that.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you.
So Kate, we talked about some of these carrots for housing as in goal setting, and I assume anything like that that we add to our discussion thing can feed back into this at any time, right?
Yeah, so I was referenced, I go back to our policies and, to the specific point that the mayor brought up is fees shall be set to recover costs except for where there is greater public benefit through the use of a lower fee where such as where full cost recovery may adversely impact overall revenue or discourage participation in programs where participation benefits the overall community. So basically saying if there's an overarching policy objective, we won't just set it to recover costs. We do have an affordable housing production strategy task force, which is looking at specifically where is our leverage points, and our best spend per dollar for the next up for where we're going to spend our time to promote affordable housing. And that included targeted stakeholder meetings with affordable housing producers, developers, and user groups. So that's all going to be put together in a report and kind of given a next game plan as to where to spend the money next. These fees that have not been bubbling up, and maybe Councillor Saunders could add a bit more to that. So kind of just where does that fit in as far as focusing on the affordable housing production strategy or doing our own individual kind of council directed goals to promote, make sure that needed housing is developed.
And I wasn't saying it's an end all of any means at all, but it just seems like any incentives that we could, give to get people to move one way or another would show that we are, trying to incentivize people to do things. So, Megan.
Well, yeah, so to Will's point, we've certainly, there's been discussion around system development charges and how those may or may not impact, the cost of development, but we haven't really been hearing specifically that the permit fees are a barrier for folks. To your point, yes, anything can help change the cost, but the scheme of, I think, and I know we've waived some stuff for ADU, but if the permit fee is $400 something, the parks SDC is 6,000. There is a different scale there that I think it's something to talk about, but I'm not sure it's going to bubble to like the number one thing we should be working on right now. But yeah, I mean, the group hasn't specifically discussed development fees.
And I'm not saying, I want these fees changed tonight at all. I just wanted to raise the question on those specific lines when it had to do with that. So others, just general things, Eric?
Well, the reason I asked about the parking, I guess I would entertain a discussion around, everyone probably has one little pet thing, and I thought your suggestions were fine to look at, but the expired meter going to $30, that there's just so much optics around parking tickets, and some of these other ones where it's kind of the mens rea, intentionality is clear, like obstructing the street, parking against traffic. Expired meters sometimes hits a lot of out-of-town folks and customers downtown, and there's just an optical pain point going from 2 to 3 in the first digit. And it just, inflation adjustment for that, it doesn't scream inflation. And I know downtown business owners have expressed concern about $28 is pretty high. 30 we're certainly getting the Portland range. I just have a little sympathy toward the possibility of not raising it.
I was in a store the other day in Portland and I said, oh man, my time's going to run out. I've got another 20 minutes or something. So it was in a 2-hour zone and it was, and I said, how much is the fine? oh, $50. And I was like, oh, I better get back over there and move my car, because you know, you can't put more money in, you have to move your car. That it just, you can't get more time. So, $50.
Have the expired meter tickets gone down as a result of the apps? Because I know like I have the app and it's like, hey, your meter's gonna expire, do you wanna add more time? And you go boop, boop, and then, hey.
Fine revenue has gone down in the past couple of years. I don't know what the reason has been. Yeah, we could look into that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I was wondering, I think within the next month, we're gonna have Visited River, the chamber's gonna be giving a report. And it'd be great to have them promote the app, because, you know, when you pay by app, it just, you don't even think about how much it costs, really. You know, you get a little fee that you have to pay 25 cents or whatever, and add, you know, another hour on or whatever. But if people don't know about it, and then they get here and they haven't downloaded the app before they get here, they're like, oh my God, I got out of my car, now I have to download an app. But if they had a promotion around making sure people download that app before they get here, I think it might help people's frustration with the parking, I guess.
I might just not remember this, but for folks that were involved in the parking study, or parking management in general, like is the fine for the expired meter, is that, you know, more a slap on the wrist if we want you to pay for your parking, or is it supposed to really deter folks?
It's to get people to move.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty intentional to keep flow going. So the difference between 28 and 30, I don't know, some psychologist and parking might be able to know. But another thing related to that though is we should be doing, you know, when we do the traffic study, we might want to increase the price of parking on Oak to $2.50 an hour instead of something, and reduce the rate on Cascade or on Fifth Street or something to basically you get data and you move people around by charging more or less, right? And it's, I think that their recommendation was to be fairly active in that, and so it's not an annual setting thing, it's sort of an annual strategizing thing with new data or complaints by downtown business.
Well, that's what they were doing in Portland. You
We
get
turn up the
you get
knob
2
here and
hours and you
there.
don't get more. You can't add it on, you have to move.
But on another street, maybe I could get 2 hours and I can add to it or something, so.
But you're just saying the fine for not paying, that's the one that people complain about. It isn't so much that it's $1 an hour or whatever. That's not what they complain about. It's if they get a ticket.
Because it's always, like, I was coming back and didn't have a quarter and we had this or something, you know, it's those stories. And it's just a big number to me, just that's a half day's work for some people.
Lots. Other,
I was able to pull up quickly what Portland's fines are if it's pertinent.
okay.
For 44 to 95, and it's they really slice and dice it. It's like if you paid but you overstayed your meter, it's the lowest, 44. If you didn't pay at all, it's 65. I think the very worst you can do is park in a no parking anytime, and that's like the death penalty, $95 one.
So if you paid your thing and it just ran out, it's the lowest amount.
Mhm.
And if you never put any money in at all, ever, they have a way to figure that out and you get a higher fine.
That's what they do. I don't know if we have that capability.
It seems like we probably do, except for the Calais, or not, the coin ones.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, is this something do we talk about parking fee policy at some other point, as opposed to this meeting? Because I'm not ready to say 30 is too much, but I'm interested in the topic.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about it further. I guess to tonight and maybe I see Eric's point of this is certainly the most visible one I think we have. And then I'm not sure like the $2 differences matters that much to me. I think we could have the larger conversation going forward, but I don't, yeah, I'm fine with 28 or probably 30. But
I guess I'd like to know, how many people are we talking about? I mean, how many people get a ticket for parking? Expired meter.
Over 100,000.
In tickets?
I have that number in my head for some reason.
I think that's all of these categories. Me parking in the intersection is $90.
So expired meter is certainly our highest volume by far. I don't know the number, but I think we could probably get in the ballpark just by taking parking fines and dividing it by 28. Wouldn't be perfectly accurate. Let's see, so about 170,000 in revenue. 70 divided by,
Hey, Will.
yeah.
This is Neil, City Police.
Mhm.
Parking over time for the year of 2021, we had about 2,600. It's 2,643 was the exact number for parking over time limit failed to properly display.
2,643 people?
Citations, yes.
Whoa,
thanks, Neil.
thank you. That's way more than I
Hey,
thought it would
Chief,
be.
would the number of tomatoes thrown at your staff increase dramatically if it was $30 versus $28?
On a quick note before I answer that is there's also it's broke down expired meters and there's 3,033 for expired meters. So they put those on two different line items. So as regards to the tomato, the app program is it's really helped, I believe, the community as far as people can actually go into the store, and when it alerts, it's been very good as far as the confrontations on the roadways. They know when they're alerted. It's those that maybe fail to download the app or put a plate in properly into the app. That's when we get contested at the window here at the PD.
Thanks.
If we wanted to go the psychological route, we could move to 29 so it doesn't go to 3, but still increase. Just to throw a third option in there. There you go.
I kind of like your idea, Megan, about 29. It's not quite, it's 29.99, but it's not 30 kind of deal. Just psychologically that it's still in the 20s, but I feel like next year it should be 30. I mean, everything goes up. Sorry. Pay your $1 an hour and you won't have to pay it.
That would be, I'd be cool to have that.
Okay, well, that's 3 of us that think 29 might be fine. You're good with that? Okay, all right, 29 for that one. You got something, Mark?
Well,
You don't know?
I would just ask that that be included in the motion.
Okay.
So what line item were we on? Just
146.
We haven't had inflation in a long, long time, right? Real more than 1.5% or whatever it is. Kind of thing. And so I was looking at just these numbers at the top, 7%. And I think that's, I'm not questioning that that's the rate that the West Coast cities are going up. But a lot of these things are, labor-based, which is, a function of our contracts and not a function of consumer inflation. And I talked to Will just for 30 seconds before the meeting, and I basically said, can we break this up so that things that are inflationary go up by the inflation and things that aren't inflationary go up by something else. And he rightfully said, that's a big pain in the tuchus to not just have a calculator that's a function of this number that we put in at the top. So I guess I just wanted to ask you guys whether that's something interesting as counselors to say, that's 7% is a pretty big increase. Especially when we start getting into these, hundreds of dollars things.
So explain that, where you're saying it's, show me an example of what you're talking about.
So let's say something in here is done by public works staff. On the first page, there was something like hanging up a banner on a street light. So that's, some guys spending 10 minutes and we figured out what that cost kind of thing. And I don't think our cost of labor for public works went up 7%. We could say that gas went up 15% and it also.
Well, I'll wait till executive session. I have no idea what we're going to talk specifically about, but I'm just saying that, we have contracts and they will go up.
So I don't feel super strongly like we need to do something, but it sort of made me say ouch. And if we're looking at a historical blip, which is my hope, it feels like we've just turned the ratchet up a big amount.
So, we haven't gotten to the budget yet, but I know, organizations like mine, we've been emailing like, what are you gonna do for a cost of living adjustment? Are you actually gonna go at 7? And some people are going at 7. So there might be a 7% labor increase.
Mayor, just grounding in policy, our adopted financial policies just tell us to tie it to an appropriate inflationary index. And so we did do a construction cost index for our SDCs for many years was much higher than West Coast CPI. But we decided that SDCs really were a function of construction costs, and that was a better inflationary index. It would just be a project to go through and say, is there a more appropriate inflationary index than the most general, most basic West Coast CPI? If the council wished us to do so.
I think if I was going to recommend something to myself, it would be be good with this year and then sort of have that on the radar for, if, do we need to be cleverer on follow-on years?
And this may just be a blip too. So.
Right.
So Jessica's point was that labor costs. So how to sort that out?
Yeah.
It was inflation. I don't know. This is a magic box.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to blow up the process, but I was concerned or curious. So,
Bring it up.
yeah, I want to bring it up. Okay, so.
Others? Justin? Megan?
I had one question about the resolution itself, actually. I guess in the only be it further resolved, it mentions resolution 2022-03, which I don't think has been written yet.
Oh,
Since this is 2022-02, and I'm assuming there's the typo for 2021-03, maybe?
correct,
Okay.
correct. The previous consolidated fee schedule from last year.
Awesome, thank you. It should be 2021-03?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe in preparation for making a potential motion, when we were talking about the parking fines, that was for the expired meter. Is overtime limit a similar thing, or is that something we wouldn't want to be treating the same?
If Chief Holstein wants to chime in while I look at the
It's
the line
line
item.
149.
149. So that's oh, and expired.
What is the difference between an expired meter and an overtime limit?
Ooh, that, yeah. Just what Chief Olsey was saying, and I don't know, yeah, I might need to look into whether or not that is a
I like the beer, Chief.
reprogramming of the ticket machine. Chief, do you know?
I do know that you're talking about the parked overtime and the one that expired tag. or
Yeah.
meter. They do use that for two different reasons, and I'm sorry I can't give the definition right now, but I've asked the same question, what exactly that is. They do use that, so. And the one is, the one
Do you
is
think it'll be
Felder.
a programming or logistical issue to have those be not the same amount?
I wouldn't think so, because they put them in separately for separate reason. The one is for like failing to display. Whether that could be anything from maybe someone working downtown and they should have put a permit in or something like that, so.
So if I could just guess, an expired meter, we could do it. Put in 15 minutes of time, and come back at half an hour. Over time, when it could be for a particular area, you can only park there for 30 minutes.
Seems logical to me.
But we don't mark tires. So how would they know?
We do chalk tires. We do it digitally
Oh,
now.
you do?
so-
Oh, okay.
Yeah, legally, we can't do it with chalk, but we do it digitally on the machine itself.
Okay.
So
It's in virtually, it's the same thing. You're parking there too long.
Correct. And I don't know the exact definition on that, but I know they do use it for separate reasons.
Well, for instance, in the Heights, there is no meters. So there'd be no meter to expire, but there is a parking time limit.
I guess maybe this is for council. Do we just want the expired meter to be 29, or what is our actual request?
I think that they both mean the same thing. You park there too long. And so I think they should be the same amount,
Okay,
29.
then I could probably come up with a motion. So I'll try it. Are we ready for that? Okay. I move that the city council adopt resolution 2022-02 with a quick edit to the last be it further resolved, adopting the consolidated schedule of fees, rates, and charges for fiscal year 2022-23 with the two edits to line 146 expired meters and line 149 overtime limit, set the fee to $29 each. Was that clear?
All right, Megan's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Eric's made a second. Additional discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Chair votes aye. All right. Thanks, Megan. City Recorder, reading of ordinance 2066 for the first time only by title.
Your Honor, I'd like to entertain a motion for the first reading of ordinance 2066 by title.
I move we read ordinance 2066 for the first time by title only.
Second,
Megan's made the motion and Jessica has seconded that motion.
Counselor Meta,
aye.
Counselor Haney,
Aye.
Counselor Saunders,
Yes.
Counselor Kuhn,
Aye.
Counselor Zan Miller,
Yes.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Ordinance 2066, an ordinance amending the City of Hood River Plan and zoning map and approving the quasi judicial zone change from urban low density residential R1 to the urban high density residential R3 for property located at 10E26 CC tax lots 500, 600, 700, and 901.
Thank you, Jennifer. Right. Mayor call. Just a couple things, just a couple things. Abigail was on the radio this morning and she sounded great. Mark Bailey did his first interview of her and he said he'll be back to in-person radio next month. So that'll be great. I just want to thank everyone publicly again, and we have our other meeting for goal setting or work plan on the 19th. And I just want to thank everyone for coming to that and spending the day. And we had some great work and staff's working diligently on putting that together for us to make some sense of what we can accomplish. And might have to go on the back burner. And so we should be seeing some things on that within the next couple weeks, correct? Okay, great. Bi-State Working Group continues on. Legislatures are working on getting the Bi-State Commission up and running. We're still trying to get 20 million for the IIJA funding for engineering from the state of Oregon. It's actually from the Oregon Transportation Commission. And then Washington is hopefully going to have more money for us, but we'll see. They're putting together a transportation package, but there's a lot of politicking going on for other reasons that don't have anything to do with our stuff, but that could put a wrench in the works, but we'll see. So continuing on with that. That's all I've got. Eric? Jessica?
I saw Visit Hood River announce their grant program. It's $30,000 for nonprofits or businesses, and this is something they did a few years ago and then discontinued it. And I know they've been wanting to bring this back. So I was trying to find right before the meeting, like when's the deadline, or I don't have that, but so just encouraging folks to reach out to Visit Hood River if they have ideas. Essentially about destination marketing. And then just also to say, I think we're all probably thinking a lot about Ukraine. I was thinking, there's probably a city council that was supposed to be meeting in Ukraine. And is not. And so just say something I'm thinking about.
Thank you. Art?
Yeah, this week I've been thinking a lot about Ukraine as well. I sent emails to customers that we have in Ukraine, and I was quite surprised, but I got emails back, and I had used sort of, we're with you, which I believe in my heart, and we hope the conflict ends, and each of them basically called me out and said, this isn't a conflict, this is a war, and people are getting killed, and they're, it's as serious as anything I've seen in my life. And I think that, just being with them in whatever way we can be with them, I think is important. And I'm trying to find out what does that even mean? So, but like Jessica, I'm, trying to be as human as possible with that whole region and hope like hell that it doesn't get worse. So thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Tim?
Yeah, I have my son talking to me, about it. And it's just, I just can't, I grew up with Vietnam. But yeah, it's just been one thing after another. And it just seems so apocalyptic. Then to see these images that, he's subjected to. So that's, I think we should take care of that for our children and making sure that that they're well.
Thanks, Tim. Megan?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing, Mark. I think anyone in the last 5 days has probably been mostly thinking about that because it's pretty bad. And yeah, it feels very impotent over here, quite far away and quite safe. To just say we're thinking about them, but I am, and I'm hoping it resolves well.
Thank you. Thank you for all your thoughts on the war that seems to be happening right now, that we all hope will turn around and bring peace soon. I guess that's how I would state it. Okay. We have any, oh, Abigail, you have, I had it on here, but I put my script down. Update.
Thank you,
From
Mayor.
Abigail.
I appreciate that. 2 quick items. One, as you mentioned, excellent goal setting session last Saturday. It was a pleasure to spend time with all of you. I sent you a follow-up email today with an assignment, so please check your email and looking if we're not planned or scheduled for next week. I'm looking for a time for us to meet either late this week or early next week. So I appreciate any flexibility with your calendar. And I will also try to be flexible, but would like to reconnect with you so that we can hopefully have a conversation on the 14th, depending on what that agenda looks like. So I appreciate that. And then my second was you all were copied on an email or a letter that was sent to me from the Parks District regarding Morrison Park and the amount of trash that is there at this time. I wanted to let you know that we've been, of course, monitoring Morrison Park. All of us have had conversations for a long time about this, but the photo was pretty dramatic, and so really wanted to take another look at it. I met with Chief Holste and Lieutenant Shaley and our compliance officer Morgan today, talk about possible next steps from the city point of view. And of course, Chief and all 3 of them and our officers have been at Morrison Park frequently. We make constant contact with the people who have been living there, and then also outreach workers who are employed by MCAC, the Community Action Council, have also been in frequent contact. So we've definitely been monitoring the situation for a long time, but it definitely seems like there are maybe more people there than had been earlier in the season. As the winter has gone on, things have developed. So I just wanted to let you all know that I received the letter. You were all copied on it, and we're looking into it. And if I have more updates, I will, of course, share with you. And then I would also encourage, if you're talking to people in the general public, or people have questions or concerns, want to know what's happening, want to know generally what's happening around homelessness, please encourage them to contact me. I'm happy to talk to folks about it anytime.
In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow. Big Community
Yes.
Action Council has their, I guess it'd be the second meeting.
Right there.
Mark attended the first meeting, and their second meeting's tomorrow afternoon.
In their
So-
strategic planning process, exactly right.
Yeah, so, things are happening, but nothing, it's like trying to turn a huge ship in the ocean. It doesn't happen very fast, but we're working on it.
Yeah, and you all are very aware of the legal, some of the legal restrictions and boundaries around, what we can do around the criminalization, the Boise versus Martin case and the Grants Pass case. But within that, we're looking to see what our other options might be. I appreciate your understanding and patience and support, and I'm happy to talk more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The city council will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6601D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Representative, the news media, and designated staff are allowed to attend the executive session, and all other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made, nor final action taken in executive session. The executive session is anticipated to last 20 minutes? Okay. At the end of the executive session, the city council meeting will be adjourned and no action will be taken. We will now discontinue the live feed and recording.